What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. 2021 is now behind us, which means it's time to start talking end of year lists. And we're starting with the one I know we're all just dying to talk about, the worst of the year list. Before we begin, let me know what your picks for the worst movies of 2021 are. As always, this is just my list and not a definitive ranking. Also, make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these videos, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases, older films, hidden gems, and so much more on a near daily basis. Now, as we go through these, please just keep in mind a few things. One is, I did not go out of my way to try watching every single bad movie of the year, especially in the second half of 2021 where I didn't have as much time. So there were a few movies that I know a lot of people really did not care for, and I simply just didn't get around to them. So if you're wondering where something was, that might be the reason why. And another thing, like I said, this is purely subjective. If you like any of these movies, that's totally fine. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. I won't agree with you, but I respect your opinion. I will also try not lingering on any of these too much or going on about them for that long for that reason. I have reviews of every single one of these movies out on the channel, and you can go check each of them out for a little more detail, and I'll just try to keep this brief. But I'll stop going on. First, let's talk about 5 dishonorable mentions that just missed the cut, and they are in alphabetical order. Boogie, a mostly generic sports drama that would have just been a middle-of-the-road film had it not been for its borderline abhorrent characters, in particular the title character himself. A classic horror story, a film that tries to act as a tribute to the horror genre, yet goes on way too many pointless tangents, features jarring tonal shifts, and contains a third-act twist that falls flat on its face. Held, a home invasion horror movie that was poorly acted and took itself way too seriously for some of its ridiculous twists and turns, including its laughably awful final reveal. Home Sweet Home Alone, the 6th film in the Home Alone franchise that tries to flip the script and present the story through the robbers, which results in a mean-spirited film that asks us to sympathize with them, but then laugh at the cruelty bestowed upon them, going against the very meaning of holiday cheer. And finally, Skull the Mask, a schlocky grindhouse slasher from Shudder that spends way too much time on an unnecessarily convoluted storyline filled with an abundance of throwaway characters who come and go so quickly that it renders it all emotionally hollow. Now that those are out of the way, let's get to the top 10, or bottom 10, whichever way you want to look at it. At number 10 is Infinite, and of all the movies on this list, this one might be the most disappointing as it had the ingredients to make a much better film. It's directed by Antoine Fuqua, and it starred Mark Wahlberg and Chiwetel Ejiofor. Though despite the latter's best efforts, this is filled with an absolutely convoluted plot, filled with non-stop exposition and name-dropping, along with mostly wooden acting from the rest of the cast, as well as horrendous special effects and lazily choreographed fight scenes. And there are times it just didn't seem to be sure what it wanted to be exactly, whether that was a stylish action thriller or a philosophical drama. Either way, it's all incoherent, and it left me asking way too many questions about how any of it made sense. At number 9 is the Addams Family 2, and I'd say this follows Infinite as another movie that should have been at least a little better. Not that I thought the first animated Addams Family movie was all that good, but it was at least harmless family-friendly entertainment. And despite most of the cast and the creative team returning for this one, it just goes totally off the rails. This relies way too much on shoehorned in pop culture references and drums up conflict mostly for the sake of it. We get the Addams Family, who are eccentric but are known for their love of one another, and yet they have them bicker for nearly the entire movie, on top of a subplot where it's questioned whether or not Gomez is even Wednesday's real father. You know, since that's what we think of when it comes to the Addams Family. This film is painfully unfunny, lacks any sense of emotion, is completely out of touch, and it's something I don't even see kids tolerating. At number 8 is Separation, a corny divorce drama that masquerades as a supernatural horror movie, and one that's not even told all that well. The film is presented mostly through the perspective of this young girl who's in the middle of this dicey custody battle, and she experiences these visions of weird creatures that are meant to be the manifestations of her fears, but these moments are laughably bad, with unfinished looking effects, along with the fact they're coming off jarring tonal shifts where the film would feel like a cheesy soap opera, and with the exception of Brian Cox, all the acting here is painfully bad, which is a shame because all the actors here are generally pretty reliable. At number 7 is Music, which might win as the most offensive movie on this list, with its painfully misguided portrayal of autism. Despite the best efforts of Kate Hudson and Leslie Odom Jr., who prevent this from making the number 1 spot on this list, there is absolutely no getting around its tone-deaf depiction of autism, with an uncomfortable performance by Maddie Ziegler, who, by the way, had to be coaxed into going through with this by Sia as she didn't even feel right in taking on the role. So that says a lot right there. On top of the fact that about half this movie felt like one giant promotion for Sia herself, with sequences completely disconnected from the plot that break out into musical numbers that might as well just be called glorified music videos. So this makes this one of the most self-serving, pretentious movies to make this list. At number 6 is Dogwashers, a little-seen Netflix original that tries to present itself as a dark crime comedy in the vein of Tarantino or Guy Ritchie, but unfortunately doesn't contain an ounce of humor. And in its attempt at recreating the layered plot structures famously seen in a Guy Ritchie or Tarantino movie, it results in an incoherent mess of a film that jumps around all over the place with little to no focus. On top of that, it's packed with insufferable characters who have close to no redeeming qualities about them whatsoever. These aren't people who are wrapped up in these operations for personal reasons and are simply misguided. These are instead horrible people who just want power and are willing to do anything to anyone who gets in their way, with literally no morals to them whatsoever, giving us no one to root for, and I mean literally no one, and it's hard to have a compelling movie when that happens. At number 5 is Great White, which should have been an easy, fun creature feature about a bunch of people trying to ward off these killer sharks, but it instead becomes one of the most painfully dull, aggravating movies of the year. It seemed the filmmakers didn't think anything through with this movie beyond people versus killer sharks. Because for most of the movie, it's just these characters stuck on a life raft, arguing with each other non-stop. To the point, it felt like they were actually just looking for excuses to drag out this interpersonal conflict for an hour and a half. And at times, it felt like the shark plot almost felt non-existent, and most of the movie plays out as borderline groan-inducing as we sit there listening to their petty squabbling. But it doesn't even get fun when the sharks themselves actually do appear, especially given that the CGI for them looks fake, and the film has to dumb everyone down in order to give an excuse as to how they could get their way into the water. You would think a movie with a premise like this wouldn't be so boring, but it manages to find a way. At number 4 is Vanquish, the definition of a rinse and repeat movie, where Ruby Rose's daughter is kidnapped by Morgan Freeman, he tells her to go to a location, kill a bunch of criminals, has her come back, at which point we have a flashback to the scene we just saw 5 minutes ago. She then begs for her daughter back, and he tells her she has to do more, and that happens I don't know how many times for literally the entire movie, beyond its first few and last few minutes. I kid you not. This might just win as the biggest paycheck movie on this list, as our two leads and the director are definitely way more talented than whatever we got here. The awful dialogue is delivered in a completely wooden way, while all of Morgan Freeman's scenes look like they were shot in less than a day, as he just had to sit in a wheelchair and repeat the same few lines over and over and over again. It's actually impressive how much of an effort everyone put into not caring, and how much they just tried padding everything to get us to 90 minutes. So if there's one thing I'll give this a little bit of credit for, it's that. At number 3 is Hes All That, the gender-swapped remake of She's All That, which in turn is a modern remake of My Fair Lady, which itself is a musical adaptation of Pygmalion. Hope I didn't lose you there. This remake of a remake is a romantic comedy that's neither funny nor particularly charming. Its two leads share absolutely no chemistry with one another, and while I'll admit parts of the original story might not age the best themselves, this ups the ante to a whole new level of mean, with our lead character being a self-obsessed narcissist with little regard for others. And what really makes this even more aggravating is this message at the end where we're basically told, hey, even though someone treated you absolutely terrible and barely expressed any remorse for it, just get over it. Which is just absolutely awful messaging, especially considering that it's meant for younger audiences. So it makes this one completely infuriating. At number 2 is Deadly Illusions, an attempt at an erotic thriller that dives deep into absolute cringe. This feels like if a Hallmark movie attempted to do a seedy thriller with overtly sentimental music overpowering each scene, while most of the attempts at emotion result in hammy overacting when not trying to recite wooden dialogue with a straight face. Characters will flip from one extreme to the other, sometimes within the same sentence, as they'll fly off the handle at the drop of a dime and have sudden shifts in motivation that come completely out of nowhere. Though what's made even more frustrating is its use of fantasy and reality blurring, which is a trope that's already been done to death, yet it's exacerbated here to such an extreme, with Kristen Davis's character suffering from the titular Deadly Illusions, though it results in all these visions that sometimes become visions within visions, and it takes a nosedive into incoherency. On top of that, there's a third act twist that was meant to up the stakes and be this big dramatic reveal, but finds the movie going completely off the deep end, to to the point that I just burst out laughing the entire time for just how ludicrous it was. Now, this actually shares a lot of similar qualities to the number one spot on this list, but the only reason this didn't get that spot is due to the fact that you can probably get some so bad it's good entertainment out of it. But the worst movie of the year for me is Cosmic Sin, a cheap direct-to-video movie that appropriately lives up to its name. I know I shouldn't expect much from these low-budget action movies that take a big name or two and stick them in a generic storyline so they're able to do their thing, but with this, I couldn't even tell you what the storyline was at this point, even if I tried. At least with all the other movies on this list, I can kind of give you an idea of what they're about, even if they didn't always make sense. But this one is totally incomprehensible. All I know is things happen, people talk, they shoot at one another at times, and that's it. Everything is so unusually vague, while characters will just change alliances at a moment's notice. It felt like they kept altering the script for this on the spot constantly as the film would go on, to the point that characters don't even make specific references to what their exact relationship with one another is after a certain point, and it is mind-boggling. On top of that, while I've knocked the acting for a number of films on this list already, this takes the cake with everyone sleepwalking their way through it. In particular, Bruce Willis, who couldn't make it any more apparent that he's literally just there for a paycheck. It's astounding how someone once known for being a charismatic action star has come to this. I mean, considering he has a ton of these lined up, if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. I was just hoping for a little more from him. But either way, this one's a complete train wreck. It's illogical, poorly written, poorly acted, and has a very clear low-budget feel to it. Not only does it not work in a so bad it's good way, but it's so bad that it comes in as my number one worst movie of 2021. And that's that for my worst movies of the year list. Like I said, if you liked any of these movies, then I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. I don't agree with you, but I respect your opinion. But for me, none of these movies worked on nearly any level, and it's a shame because quite a few of them include actors who I generally enjoy, and I wish they could have been better. But what can you do? Stay tuned though, as I'll have my best of the year list up shortly, along with my overlooked movies of 2021 list, and a few more lists to kick off the year coming soon. In the meantime though, let me know, what were your worst movies of 2021? Was it anything I listed here? Was it something I left off? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.